Thank you so much, and welcome to the post-game lobby. Still here with Stress and the Fish Show, where we are going to look back on today's games and banter a bit, have a bit of discussion, starting with the series that just wrapped up. As Pyra said, H2K can be happy. It was the big question. Will they be really tired? Will they not really have any motivation? Will they keep going?
I want to say something there.
I see it because you're doing this.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So it's funny because, we keep saying, like, are they tired? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we are now 6 weeks into the LCS. Like, teams normally play a full split and then they're tired. So it's kind of funny, this whole, like, some teams needed a break and then other teams didn't need it.
But
and
10 games in 3 days, though.
No, but that's great, But, like, point is, like, they would scrim those games anyway. So, like, it's not like they wouldn't be playing if it was a normal week. So it's actually funny that there's so much talk about, is a team drained after an event like this, when technically, actually, no, they should just be even better because they got to play so many extra games. And, like, H2K never seemed like they even talked about needing a break or anything. So that's why it's funny that Fnatic needed a break.
And that's what you were getting to, actually.
Yeah, that's my point. Is like it's weird that one team needed one, or some teams needed one, and other teams obviously didn't because we only 5 weeks.
Maybe different teams have different needs and different dynamics, different,
I think the problem about that is, though, when you're clearly having problems that, Mitch was talking about it towards the end, there's no synergy in the team. There's no nothing. People are kind of stepping forward at really random times. Nobody seems to be talking to each other. And the improvements we saw when Brox had joined the Fnatic lineup in the early game got so hard shut down in this game by Jankos, just walking into the jungle and being like, okay, all of these camps are mine. Fnatic just didn't have any real positives in these games.
They tried bot lane.
They did. Let's take a look at it. They tried something.
They tried something to make a play, but it's kind of the story for Fnatic right now. Like, they're setting up this, like, really slow siege, and then by the time they dive in, they actually wait for the minions to almost be dead, and then it's just like Source goes in, flashes away, and no one can follow up. And meanwhile, Odanis is sitting top lane, taking a tower. And this is like a very traditional or standard Fnatic play right now, where they're kind of all in on a very risky move, while the enemy team is kind of just doing their, should we say, standard, which is like, just don't TP anything, like just take top tower, and then all Nuclear had to do was flash the body slam, and then they get a 1-for-1 here after, but they've already now fallen behind 4K gold, so it's pretty tough.
It sounds very doom and gloom while we're talking about it for Fnatic. This lineup is still good enough to, I think, make playoffs. I think the 4 teams.
Well, is that because of them or because of the teams under them?
Well, that's kind of the nature of competition, right?
Yeah.
It is, although Fnatic against the top teams don't look great, they still are better than Vitality, Origin, Roccat, and Giants. And yes, they're probably going to lose a couple of games along the way, but I think Fnatic should just concentrate on getting to that playoff position and improving as much as you can for summer.
But I wonder, again, improve for summer, I agree, but I wonder if for Fnatic as an organization, is it enough just to be part of playoffs? Because they look like one of the weakest of the top 6 teams, so we shouldn't right now expect them to do a whole lot in a quarterfinal, but there's still some weeks, maybe they can improve a lot before that. It's not looking very likely at the moment.
Not at the moment. We are going to move on for a second because we have an interview standing by with one of the members of H2K, so we're going to head over to Quick Shot.
Thank you very much, Sharks. I am joined by the cool, the calm, the collected Jankos. First of all, congratulations on the win. Did it feel as easy for you to play as it was for us to watch, how easily you took down Fnatic?
To be honest, I felt like in the first game, the guy who did draft for Fnatic should probably not get food or not get paid because it was so bad for my eyes, I almost, pretty much I knew from the beginning that we will win this game no matter what. And then second game, the draft kind of improved, but it was still a little bit shaky. And I felt like their players were inting it, so.
Thing is, that's something we've heard a lot. Fnatic's drafts all split. Is that something that you guys as H2K have also noticed? As a team, they just don't seem to maybe read the meta or pick the appropriate champions? What do you think?
It's really hard to judge why Fnatic is doing such mistakes. I think maybe they just can't read the meta, maybe they don't know what's good. I felt like after IEM we improved a lot and they stayed the same, so that's why we kind of rolled over them this game. Even though it was not a flawless game, we still kind of just won it. And they are just, I don't know what are they doing, to be honest, but...
It's a really tough situation for Fnatic. You mentioned IEM. I actually wanted to ask you a few questions about your experience in Katowice, playing into the crowd, losing a series to Flash Wolves that you guys should have won. That game 2 team fight. Well, talk to me about that series first of all. What was going through your mind?
Hey bro, stop it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Flash Wolves are a really good team, and we are the only European team that took a game from them and almost took the second one. I think we improved a lot on IM. We kind of understand how to play the Worlds meta instead of EU meta, and Worlds meta seems, even though it's not as efficient, it's way more easy to play the meta like this, and it feels like Worlds meta just fits our team better as well. So, you know, after the second game against Flash Wolves, I think what was missing was patience, because, you know, we didn't have to teamfight mid lane. We had to bait Nashor. We had to play it slower. I feel like we got a little bit too excited in the game, in the second game, because, you know, first game was kind of collective. We were doing mistakes. We were losing some team fights, but we still managed to close the game. Second game was very similar, where early game was very smooth. At some point, though, in team fights, we started making huge mistakes. We started splitting up. We were over-eager, and that did cost us the BO3.
It was great watching you guys play. H2K, for most of your games, most of the time, looking control and calm and collected. It's just those small mistakes that seem to cost you guys. What was it like playing in Katowice again with that whole crowd? You had huge smiles every time the crowd was cheering for H2K and Jankos.
I mean, it's really nice to play in front of a crowd that cheers for you and for your team. And since, you know, I was in Poland and I love Polish crowd and I always wanted to play in front of a huge Polish crowd, then that was like dream come true. And every time they would cheer for us, it was so pleasant. And it was so amazing. It's really hard to describe it, but the feeling I had on stage was just like, I was a god, you know, like, I was not Faker because I'm not good, I mean, compared to Faker, but still, you know, they're cheering for me and supporting me, so it was insane.
First Blood King, I mean, you've got a different title, not exactly the unkillable Demon King, but it still counts, Jankos.
Maybe.
Let's bring it back to the EU LCS. Today, both teams that are in the running for #2 team behind G2 you guys and Misfits. Next week, you're playing Misfits. Who is the second best team if G2 is the first?
I honestly think that Misfits are playing the Worlds meta since the very last week already, I mean before IM. So I think they are really strong opponents. I think that they made a lot of mistakes in mid and late game against UL, and that's why the games were shaky. But as we could see, their early game is really on point, and they play very similar style to us right now. So I think this matchup will be really tough. I think they are great. I think they have great players, and it's going to be way, way harder than in Fnatic.
It will be, but you haven't answered my question. Who is the second best team? Is it H2K or is it Misfits?
Well, we'll have to see. Just, you know, tune into the European LCS next week and... Yeah.
Okay, well, seeing as though Jankos won't actually give me the answer, next week we will see that game. Dude, thank you so much for the interview. Congratulations on taking on Fnatic.
Thank you.
All right, great. We're going to head back over to the analyst desk for the rest of post-game lobby.
No, keep talking. That's so entertaining. But thank you. Always great to hear from Jankos, of course. A lot of interesting things in there about the second best team and all that. But I do want to talk about one thing. He talked about how the World's meta might not be as effective, but it's easier to play. Why is that exactly?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down into drafting like very strong pushing lanes and then having a jungler who can invade the enemy jungle a lot. It's what we saw Jankos do in both series right now. It's why we talk about these Raptor camps. You know, take your own and you play around the enemy Raptor camp. You get yourself an experience advantage as a jungler, and you use that to kind of further take over the map. But a lot of it comes down to having these very strong early lanes that can push in the minions, so you can join for potential fights.
Exactly, and you know, when we were seeing Misfits earlier attempt that against some of the later scaling, you can see if you're not pushing the advantage, that's where the picks like the Orianna, like the Rise that we've seen in weeks gone by, can have that effect. But one of the things that like Flash Wolves were doing was never giving you that opportunity, because they were so clean on taking the Syndra and the Graves and, you know, the Lee Sins of the meta and just being like, okay, now we're going to dive you, and you're never having an opportunity to scale.
Yeah, and it's always fun to see how things that are actually considered standard is something that teams can forget and then have to pick it back up. Like coming into this split when the jungle camps were changed, there was like a slower respawn time. Everyone was talking about, oh, pushing lane in mid, pushing mid lane, because then my jungler can invade, we can steal away their camps, they don't get anything, slower respawn, it's great. A few weeks later, no one really talks about it, and it kind of goes away, and people start playing like a lot of scaling.
Is that like an evolution of the meta?
I don't know if it is, because it was already a thing. Then they swapped away from it, and then they go to IEM and they play against like Kasa and the Rox Tigers, who did this exact strategy, and like a lot of Syndra from Mabel, and they're like, oh yeah, is really strong. Yeah,
Well,
we should do this too.
That's why it's so fun always, like an actual World Championship, when it's a couple of weeks and you see that meta evolving within the microcosm of that championship. But we're not there yet. We're long not there yet. But the question is, who will get there from EU? That is always the long-term question. And Misfits, again, today, even though they are a rookie squad in the LCS, they looked fantastic. They played the Unicorns of Love and asserted their dominance and again said, no, we are here to stay.
They looked great today. Like, let's be real. For the majority of the games, Misfits were in control in the early game. It was just the late game decision-making that we heard Jankos talking about that was a little suspect from Misfits. I really liked how they played around their vision control, their early game, and tried to punish Unicorns for all of these, like, Orianna picks where they needed extra time.
Exactly, and I think overall, like, we talked about this during the series, you guys said it on the desk, like, very enjoyable series to watch with a lot of, like, fights, but also some very good, like, macro moves here and there, especially from Misfits in some of the games, and overall, very exciting team to follow. And within Europe, yes, they're making some mistakes, but they're not making enough to not beat some of these other top teams, and that's why this H2K Misfits series is going to be so exciting, because they have like these moments in games where they look like so good. You're just like, man, this is clean, you're getting the early advantage, oh, nice rotation, we love it, good vision. And then both teams have these like mistakes, especially towards the late game, where things can fall apart. So it's going to be fun to see these two kind of teams play each other when they have the same weaknesses and strengths.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's a big strength that H2K have that Unicorns did not in this series. And that is the fact that Nuclear and Shay are not going to get killed in lane by Ignar.
That's true.
Which means Ignar can't go out of lane quite as often. And that shuts down some of that playmaking. Like, that's such a hype 2v2 for me, because now it's Hans Sama and Ignar getting tested again. We saw against Venomithi, they didn't really have that much opportunity. Now let's see it against Nuclear and Shay.
I mean, there's another thing I like about both teams is that I feel like almost every player is one where you've got to be like, ooh, I want to see that matchup. Power Vivo versus Febiven, two of the best performing mid laners right now. Odo Amne versus Alfari, two of the best performing top laners. Kakao Jankos, two of the best performing junglers. Like, I feel like every matchup here, like the one coming into the split you wouldn't highlight would be the bot lane matchup specifically. But because Nuclear and Shay is obviously doing much better and Hansama and Ignar has been doing really well, it's like every lane, there's a lot of positives and you really want to see how they match up against each other.
It'd be very exciting, which, you know, could be right now, but if
we should probably watch it. I think we should all
watch it. And also, player of the series in that Misfits one was Kakao. Was very close, and he always has such a good impression or such a good game. And the most important thing was like on Lee Sin in the last game, even late game where you are kind of just a kick bot. He did always find the opening
very good
to make
kick
it happen.
Bot. He found the correct kicks, and he also killed the AD carry a few times.
So many times. It was great, and always happy doing it as well. Every time we get the shot of Kakao, he's laughing.
Died, whatever.
I also like that Power Vivo. He had an interview. It was on Reddit where he talked about how like playing with Kakao is just like you get this like super positive environment because he's super happy.
The Huni
himself.
effect.
It's kind of the Huni effect, but he's also like super tryhard. So he watches, you know, his own VODs. He plays a ton of solo queue all the time. Like there's never like a break for him specifically. It's always trying to improve while being this happy guy that makes everyone else around him happy. That's a great teammate to have.
It is one of the biggest improvements that Power of Evil has made in game. Not just morale.
Being happy.
He is a lot more cautious about making these overextended plays. On Origin, on Unicorns, he used to be like, I'm going in, I'm going to try and make a play. Now you see him take a step and it's like, oh, should I go towards an Orianna that still has Shockwave? On Ari, yes, of course he's looking for the charm, but he knows he can rely on the rest of his team. It's a more controlled Power of Evil, and that's one of the reasons why he's succeeding.
Well, it's the arcs of mid laners that we've talked about a couple of times already with Perks, who said, oh, first, you know, I was reckless and doing good, and then I focused on the macro game and I took a step back. Febiven went through the same thing. Power of Evil went through the same thing.
Growing up.
They're growing up. They're growing into these fantastic players that we love to see, or growing back into their peak, like Febiven, who has, you know, done fantastically this split so far already. And it's so interesting to see for me the Misfits, because it is everything you need as a shining example of a challenger team coming into the LCS in terms of coaching staff as well. And even today, after their victory, nota bene, versus the Unicorns of Love, there was a tweet from Daku, the head coach, saying, well, disappointed with today's performance. Despite the win, it wasn't clean. We have stuff to work on, which is, of course, in stark contrast to other teams who would you be like, GG, go next.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And a lot of other teams also would be like, just give us a win. Like we really need a win right now. Where if you are Misfits, like week one, if you got a 2-1 victory over Unicorns, you'd just be happy about it. But now, because you have become a top team, everyone looks at you like you are a top team. You have to act like a top team, which means if you feel like you're making, too many mistakes in your game as a coach and as a team, then these kind of tweets will happen because you're like, damn, we lost a Baron. They normally don't lose Barons. They lost game 2 as well. So I understand why he's like disappointed, but obviously also take a step back and realize we're week 6 and your team is doing really, really well.
And not only that, you're talking about taking a step back from the growth, the fundamentals of everything they've been talking about for the last 6 weeks, where they're like vision. We've been working on vision. Everything's about that macro game. We're still there. Even in a performance you're not happy with, their ability to restrict the unicorns back into their own base in every single game still maintained, and that's really one of the strengths that was impressive.
I like the point you made, Shocks, before about, Misfits as an organization is doing everything correct, and they're now showing how they get rewarded by becoming this really good team, and I really agree, it's so important to see an organization who's clearly doing more than certain other organizations are doing in the EU LCS, having built up this infrastructure already, investors, an owner who's super invested in the team. I saw the video of the gaming house recently as well. It's the apartment they basically built for these guys, and it looks fantastic. So they're doing all these correct moves as an organization, and it's just great to see them actually then get rewarded. So other organizations can look at it and say, ooh, that's what we're aiming for, because it's actually working.
But as always, and it's always, well, of course it's all going well when it's all going uphill and you're winning, and we have to see the other side of the medal, but I don't want to be a negative Nancy here, because they are winning, and they are doing good, and it's all looking good for them. And after that game today, we can also see the Misfits starting to cement their place in the league overall. We asked the question, who's the second best team in Europe? Well, I'm going to ask you guys, because you're right. It doesn't really matter. They're definitely the second best team in Group A, but out of everything we've seen today?
We'll see you next week.
All right.
Yeah, I will go on record and say I think by a hair it's H2K. I think Misfits are looking very strong, and that's not to take anything away from them, but I do think H2K are probably just slightly better.
Is a Misfits' tendency to draw out games even when they have a lead a bigger problem than H2K's ability to throw games late?
Well, they kind of end up in the same thing, where the game ends up being much longer, and we're like, whoa, we don't really 100% trust in your late games. I think some of the problems are just so similar that it's like when they do play each other, it's either which team gets the early advantage and then kind of snowballs and then, avoids the mistake and boom, they're going to cleanly win the game. Or it becomes one of these slugfests where it's like, you win, but now I win, and now you win, now I win, and it's kind of hard to predict the win in that sense. That's why I think it's really hard to say who's the second best, because I think both teams are even. I just don't know with G2, they're sitting there, we obviously have them number 1. I don't know how much better G2 is getting in Europe, because they seem to be needing practice with teams outside as well, and they can't get that.
I want to see them come out of the gates, drop some of this slower thing, and just crush everybody. It's a bit sad, though, talking about the second place team. Weeks 1 to 4, if you didn't put unicorns there, everybody would think you're crazy. Now we're 2 weeks on, IEM on, and unicorns just seem to be figured out, and I want to see them regroup as a team as well.
Well, Mitch was saying before, they've built up some credit, right? They have now earned a position where they've earned the right to figure some things out. Of course, it can't last that long because we're week 6 already, but we'll see. And we'll also see G2 tomorrow, as they will be going up against Vitality. Yes, I thought that.
Tough matchup.
And Splice versus Giants, and Misfits OG and Unicorns of Love versus Rocket. But the same question goes for them. Stress, saw them at IEM. We did also see good things from them. They made it to the finals, crushing loss there in the finals in the end, but looked good overall.
I'm mixed on G2's performance.
I asked Stress.
Oh, sorry. Because you're just looking at me. So
I know.
It's all right. I think we'll see the bot lane shore up some of the issues we saw at IEM. I don't think most of the European squads, especially not Vitality, aren't going to exploit any of the weaknesses that G2 had. So I think it'll be back to business as usual for them. I just want them to come out a bit faster, start pushing their lead. Just get fast wins, get clean wins. I know a lot of talk about average game time.
Are we going to get into this discussion?
But if you're winning cleanly, normally you're winning quickly. That's what I want to see out of G2.
Yeah, I think G2's problem, again, is not winning games in Europe. It's improving from those games when it comes to the international stage, which is the goal. Same problem like TSM had last year in North America. They were winning and winning and winning, steps onto the international stage, and then suddenly you realize that the teams you were playing against in your own region just didn't punish whatever mistakes you would make. So when you made them against better teams, boom, punished, didn't make it out of groups. Same thing with G2. So I think that's a bigger discussion or problem for them than necessarily was it a great IM? You know, will they bounce back? Like, they're playing Vitality tomorrow. That's going to be a 2-0 most likely in favor of G2. But I think Vitality is a team to follow in a sense. Like, can they claw their way back up? But like, G2 should take that game.
Yeah, and we should be very excited to watch how they do it and how good their League of Legends is that they show us.
already told us
right?
what the result is.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you spoiled the last game. You said 2-0 H2K, and it was...
No, I for one am excited to see what G2 brings to the Rift back from IM. Well, we will see that tomorrow. It's time for us to close the client for the night. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in tomorrow as our coverage of the European LCS 2017 Spring Split continues. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.